We now have less than 24 hours. And the question is, are we going to see more candles like this where the NASDAQ shoots up more than 110 points in less than 1 minute? Now, today the stock market was closed, so we have no updated reading on the VIX, the dollar index, or any stocks out there. However, if you traded the futures markets like we did live on stream, then there was plenty of opportunities out here this morning. However, when we look at the economic calendar, there is no major news out there for Monday, no major economic news for Tuesday, none for Wednesday. On Thursday is the first day we get any major economic news, and that's going to be the weekly unemployment claims. Then on Friday, we have some PMI numbers coming out. We also have existing home sales at 10 a.m., revised consumer sentiment, revised inflation expectations. So there is very little economic news to be concerned with. However, we saw it today during the inauguration. That's when we were seeing big moves in the market. Trump came out there and made all these bold promises. And if you guys probably saw it, US dollar tumbles as Trump team suggests, tariff delays, vows, flurry of executive orders, and one thing that Trump actually talked about today, which caused that massive 100-point move out there in the stock market, was Trump touts historic order on illegal immigration, EVs, and inflation as he is inaugurated. And in case you guys missed it, when he made that major announcement that there would be no tariffs on day number 1, now he didn't say not day 2, 3, 4, or 5. He just said not on day 1. Look right here on the chart on the left-hand side, US dollar versus Japanese yen. Big push on the way down, and look at the S&P 500, a rocket ship on the way up, and the NASDAQ had a very similar pattern, which I showed at the very beginning of this video. However, with all that behind us, that's not the most that we have to worry about. Let's not forget, once again, on Tuesday, the US debt ceiling will be reached. And do you guys think this will negatively impact stocks? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Now today, even though I didn't see the dollar index actually trade out there today, if you take a look at gold basically had a huge candle of indecision, meaning we have a big wick on top of the candle, a large wick on the bottom, and a relatively small body. A spinning top candle is essentially a candle of indecision. But the longer we stay up here near this swing point over to the left, the more likely that swing point will break and make it all the way up towards this ABC pattern up here at 2,815. And that will be high enough to make another new all-time high in this market. Now, if we come over and look at the YM real quick, the Dow Jones futures this morning, what do we see? Dow Jones was currently up. Now, when we look at the Russell 2000 real quick, notice we had a wick on the top, wick on the bottom, but for all intents and purposes, we essentially closed in the upper end of the range. Then as we jump over, we start taking a look at, let's say, the NASDAQ futures real quick on the daily chart, we basically have a candle of indecision, a wick on the top, wick on the bottom. However, there's some upside targets that we're going to talk about here in a few moments. MACD indicator is just now trying to cross to the upside. And as we start looking at the 4-hour chart, MACD indicator has been strong for quite some time. We look over here at the 30-minute chart, and the MACD indicator is not looking as strong. Notice right here at the level of the MACD indicator, look at how low the peak is compared to the peak over here. The peak over here basically correlates with the high that we saw out here from Friday. And then today we came up and we smashed through that high, but the MACD indicator simply was not confirming that. Now, what is that telling us? Well, it's a big heads up. Momentum to the upside is starting to wane off. Then as we come over and look at the 4-hour charts back over here, let's look at the point of controls. Keep in mind, last week, we did leave an untested point of control down here at about 21,387.75. But if we can hold up at these upper levels, let's not forget, we do have an untested point of control up here at 21,982. And something we talked about today on the live stream. And if you guys want to make sure you don't miss the next time I go live, make sure you're subscribed and you have the bell notifications turned on for all. But if we were to go ahead and pull an A to B equals C to D pattern from the lows right before the CPI data came out, notice that first target is going to be up here about 21,833. That would be the next logical target to the upside once we start pushing above this high volume area on the composite profile. Then when we come over and start looking at the daily profiles, some of the areas we were talking about today on the live stream, this area was a much larger minus development area, but then towards the end of the session, we came down and tested that area out. So now I'm going to remove that area off my chart. You can also see we had an overnight high. We blasted through that this morning with that candle that we talked about earlier. We have now come back and tested that level. So now the question is it green lights? All system goes for the market to move up higher, because as I start looking at the volume profile levels for tonight, value area high is going to come in about 21,774. The point of control will be down here about 21,686 with value area low being 21,617 and a half. Now tonight, do not be surprised if we start pushing through value area high. And let me know, since the inauguration, are you guys more optimistic about the future, or do you think there's a lot more dark times up ahead? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Now, if we can hold this low, that 30-minute candle low that closed at 12:30 p.m., if that low can hold, then we have this potential for this A to B equals C to D pattern from today's 30-minute chart. Now, that pattern would also complete up here about 21,859. Now, I want you guys to remember that number, 21,859. When we come back over and look at the 4-hour chart, that's not that far away from that ABC pattern that started right before the CPI data came out at 21,833. So that could be exactly where the NASDAQ is headed in the very near future. Now, if you like a way to support the channel at no additional cost to yourself, check out the 3 prop firms I trade with: Apex Trader Funding, My Fund and Futures, and Take Profit Trader. Right now, you can get the best deal out there using the promo codes and the links down below. Now, before we jump over and take a look at the S&P 500, I want to remind you guys, we are now getting back into earnings seasons. Tomorrow after close, we have Netflix, United Health, Interactive Brokers, Capital One. Before the bell, we have Schwab, we have 3M, and when we come over and look at the expected big movers out there for Tuesday, United Airlines expected to move plus or minus 10%. Netflix expected to move plus or minus 8.5%. 3M is going to be plus or minus 6.5%. Now, when we come over and look at the S&P 500 real quick, the ES futures markets, notice we have a wick on the top, wick on the bottom. The body's a little bit larger than I'd normally like to see for what I would consider to be a spinning top type of candle. Now, if you look at the MACD indicator on the daily chart, we do have a fresh cross to the upside. And as we start measuring and basically looking from all-time highs down to the current closing price, we're roughly only 1.5% away from all-time highs. At the high water mark today, we're only 1.23% down. Then we dive down, start looking at the 4-hour chart. MACD indicator has been crossed up for quite some time. However, the lines are starting to come a little bit closer. There could still be more upside to come, however. 30-minute chart, MACD indicator is similar to what we talked about with the NASDAQ. Look at the peak that correlated with the high from today. Much lower than what we saw from the high out here on Friday, which also could be a warning sign that momentum to the upside is starting to wane off here just a bit. Now, as we come over and start looking at the 4-hour charts with the weekly profiles in combination with the composite profile on the right, I want to look for some key areas. Now, if we look above us, we do have an untested point of control up here at 6,131.75. However, notice we're also starting to come very close towards this next high volume area on the profile, and that area is going to be about 6,082. However, if we start to pull back, let's not forget we do have a minus development area that formed out here from last week, along with the much larger minus development area that formed during the CPI data. Now, I don't think it's far-fetched to think that we come back down towards this minus development area, but we can see today we did actually wick down towards that area, and now we rejected back out. Now, the first time we come into the minus development area, we normally will get some type of reaction. Normally we'll end up rejecting out or going sideways. When we come back into a second or third time, that's when we'll likely start coming down towards the point of control, then maybe start working our way down towards that inefficiency in the market that was produced back from the CPI data being released. Also, if we go ahead and we grab our Fibonacci extension tool, we measure A to B equals C to D. Notice the ABC pattern takes us very close towards that untested point of control just above us. Now, if you want to use the low right before the CPI data came out, you can see that target would be about 6,102. Jumping over real quick and taking a look at the daily profiles, notice we did get a slap off the highs here just a bit. And as we start to look a little bit lower, we do have a minus development area right down here, which can come back and get tested out here tonight. Notice we closed very close towards the point of control, with value area high being up here about 6,068.25. The point of control is going to be about 6,056.75, with value area low being 6,036.75. Now, if we can stay below the point of control, this minus development area will be a target location for me. That's going to be somewhere in the ballpark of 6,043. Now, if we can start flushing below value area low, yes, I want to target that low from that was produced right when it was announced that Trump will be delaying tariffs. Then if we come back into it, we're likely going to go all the way to the other side of that zone. And the next target would be down here about 6,003. Anything below that, my runner targets would start to be pushed all the way down here towards 59.50. However, I'm not very optimistic that tomorrow we will be pushing down that low, especially with the lack of economic news coming out for tomorrow. Now, before you trade with Take Profit Trader, make sure to watch this video right here.